How you gonna plot on my wife? Do you think he snake me cause he hate me or he got a PhD? Player haters agree. Can't nobody take my pride. Can't nobody hold.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Business Chats with BNaz. For this episode, we're sort of turning the the microphone on ourselves with one of our Three Guys podcast co-hosts, Derek DePetrillo, who owns his own law, who runs his own law office, and we're joined by longtime special guest straight from Los Angeles, California.
Yes. Jen
Pasica. Brett is off tonight due to a work commitment, but we thought it'd be fun to have. We've been talking a long time. JP came up with a great idea of sort of introducing who the three guys are. I know in our first couple of episodes, our first few episodes did a little bit of that, but it's been kind of forever since we've kind of shared about ourselves. I know during our discussions with our guests, we kind of insert ourselves into certain situations about our experiences, whatever we're talking about. But I think other than that, we don't really talk too much about ourselves intentionally because this podcast is not meant to be about us. But, we thought as we cross over 4,000 downloads, maybe we do share a little bit about who we are and what we do. And we thought via a BNaz business chat, we can talk a little bit about Derek's business, what he does, have some fun with him with some pick ones and go from there. So first and foremost, welcome, Jen, back to the Three Guys. How you doing? How's it going out there in LA?
Hey, life's good. Summer is here. Things are busy. Things are open. It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's almost like I think it's a requirement now. We have to have you at least. I think on your contract it's it's once every 4 episodes. And then welcome to Derek's a longtime BNaz business chat guest. Obviously, I think he's been almost every one. So thank you, Derek, for joining us, and thank you for letting us sort of learn a little about you and what you got going on in your business. You know, you worked really, really, really hard in growing it over the last probably 10 or 15 years. So I can't wait to learn about it and share with our guests about what you do in your own personal journey. I think it's going to be really fun for us all to hear. But
it's a little easier for me to talk about my business because I own the business. I know for yourself and Brett, it's a little tougher because you work for a company. So even like when I was trying to get Sean on here, the Three Guys, to talk about it, you had to go through a whole process of getting approvals. And I know for you and probably my brother, it's the same thing. You start talking about the business, you got to get the approvals and what you can say and can't say. So, at least with me, I'm my own boss, so I can tell you anything you want to hear.
Well, we did about, it was a year ago or so. We did a YouTube only episode with Andy Paschke, one of my former directors, and David Leonardo, one of our past guests. And both are just, I disrespect both their business acumen so much. And we did an episode on brand loyalty just to kind of have fun and have a chat. And then like, as soon as we got done, I Googled our company's like terms and conditions. And I'm like, oh my God, we can't really say anything that we talked about. Not to say anything bad or.
We violated all of those.
So the episode is 15 minutes long on our YouTube page.
Oh, it's understandable. When I used to work at the movie theater as a general manager, just to talk about anything, it's a media or anything, you'd have to get approval from the top. It doesn't matter what I was talking about. It was just any type of, I'd have to get approval. So the good thing is I can tell you everything behind the curtain with me, and everything's just not going to be, I'll consume myself.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So let's start with a couple of pick ones, and we could, we were talking before we started recording. I could probably do pick ones for like 4 hours with you. But
yeah, I know you could.
I'll save everyone.
You started the other day on text messaging. It went overkill.
No, I won't.
Brian tapped out after a while.
I'm gonna just do a couple, and then JP, if you have a couple that you wanna do, and then we'll get going. So really, in no particular order. Just gonna sort of throw something at you. And one, I feel like you have to answer because you asked all of our guests. And I don't know, you may have answered it somewhere within our episodes. We've got to find it. So Stand By Me or Goonies?
No, it's Stand By Me. I've said that. It's always been Stand By Me. I'm a huge Stand By Me fan. I just love the whole, I don't know. Goonies I love Goonies, don't get me wrong. But Stand By Me, I think it just had a more of a an emotional attachment because they're growing up and they talk about that, and then losing as you get older, how you lose your friends. It's a little bit more of a storyline that's why I like Stand By Me better.
I'm with you. I'm a Stand By Me fan, and I love Richard Dreyfuss, he's the voice in it. But I for whatever reason, I always love the movies that he's involved in. But yeah, I'm a Stand By Me. What about you, JP? Where are you on that?
Stand By Me for sure. I think that they're both very different, right? One is more of a comedy. Stand By Me is more of a, I don't want to say real life, but relatable maybe.
Exactly.
But I think it's a classic. Stand By Me is hands down for me.
I mean, just like growing up. I mean, granted, I think we didn't grow up in the 50s, but still, being outside. At least when I was younger, outside, hanging out with my friends, doing stuff like that, and then bonding, and then maybe losing the friendships you had with people that you grew up with. And then as you get older, unfortunately, someone like River Phoenix character, and actually River Phoenix himself passing away. So
it'd be interesting to see that movie shot now with social media, because they probably still stay connected,
Yeah, true. Very true.
All right, we're gonna switch some gears. We're gonna leave movies for a second. We're gonna go to sports because I know how much you love sports. So one thing that's interesting about Derek, JP, and you may know this by now, he grew up in Boston, Boston area, like myself, lived here all his life. But I think other than maybe the Celtics, go Celtics. Sorry, JP.
Yep.
Other than maybe the Celtics, he's not really a Boston fan. So Derek, of you, Sabres, Steelers, Dodgers. Those are your three. So share a little bit why you gravitated towards those three non-Boston teams. That's not common around here. It goes back 30 years. You've been diehard all three.
Well, the Dodgers, it's just when I was younger. One of my first teams I played on, I should say, was the Dodgers team, and we were unbelievable. We won our league, we won every year. So I just became a Dodgers fan. But you know how it is when you're younger. You gravitate sometimes to not, if it's, sometimes not Boston fan. My father wasn't a huge baseball fan, but I played baseball. I just gravitated toward the Dodgers because that's one of the first teams I played with. The Sabres reason I became a Sabres fan is because one of the first games I went to was against Buffalo, and the goalie at the time was Tom Barrasso. Tom Barrasso grew up a few towns over from us. I would say a few towns. He grew up Acton, Boxborough, which is some towns away from us. I was a goalie. He was a goalie. I just gravitated towards Tom Barrasso, and that's how I became a Sabres fan. And then the Steelers fan, again, when I was growing up, the Patriots weren't that good. You remember that, Brian. I mean, we'd have to sometimes go listen to the radio just for a home game because they couldn't, they weren't on TV. They were blacked out. So I just became a Steelers fan. Again, it's easy when you fall on a team when I'm younger because they won 4 Super Bowls. So I'm sure I gravitated towards them that way because they had won 4 Super Bowls at the time, which was the most. And just like I'm sure now there's a lot of Patriots fans in different parts of the country because they're always winning. They won so many Super Bowls. I'm sure that's why they became a lot of Patriots fans across the country now.
Yeah, to your point. When you're winning, you're always on TV, so you're always seeing the Steelers. When you're growing up, you never saw the Cardinals. Yeah. Even when you was in Arizona, you never saw the Cardinals. So I'm sure that's part of just what you see. You get used to it. The players, the coaches. You get used to it.
No, I'm sure. Now, if I grew up this time when the Patriots were stacked like they were, and like in the time that some of these kids have grown up now from 2000 on, yeah, I'm sure I'd be a diehard Patriots fan. My father was a Patriots fan, but he wasn't because they were never good. They were always struggling. And then I cheered for them the year that they went to the Super Bowl and they got destroyed by Chicago. I was a Patriots fan back then. I don't dislike Boston teams. They're just more of a, those other teams other than the Celtics.
So for the core base of our listeners based in Massachusetts, I am a diehard sports fan for all sports.
Oh yeah, and Brian's a diehard Boston fan. Yeah.
So on the sports one, then JP, I want to give you a chance. So Stanley Cup Finals, Super Bowl, and Stanley Cup playoffs, Stanley Cup Finals, the NBA championships, the World Series, or the Super Bowl. Of all of those, you can go to the deciding game or obviously Super Bowl. What's that one game if you had your team playing, you would go? You can only pick one.
I think you stumped her. Was it for me or her?
No, that was for you.
Was it for me? I thought that was I thought that was a JP. That's why I'm like,
that's all right. I can clean this up. I can edit this up.
Oh, for me? Oh,
you know what?
7.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on. Game 7. Okay, so I'm going to edit this. I'll fix
NHL,
it. So,
Game 7 NHL.
I have nothing on hockey. I got nothing on hockey.
Well, that's why I thought you said JP.
No.
Yeah. No, I Game 7 NHL, definitely.
So you're for your Sabres.
For my Sabres, yes. But if I had to pick a game to go to,
so in general,
it'd be a Game 7 in NHL.
Gotcha. Have you been to a Game 7?
No, I got my parents though. I got them to the Stanley Cup final games. I bought tickets. Well, I got tickets from the guy that used to come to the movie theater, and I got them for Game 3 or 4 against Vancouver.
I've been to probably more than 2, but 2 fairly recent like playoff intense, and you can cut the energy with a knife. JP, have you ever been to like a playoff game, or whether it was work related or just going to a game? Playoff, like.
Oh, she just muted herself.
That's all right. Did she freeze?
I think she froze. Yeah, she froze and she's muted.
I'm gonna ask it again.
Good now.
I'm gonna ask it again.
Okay.
So Derek was just talking about the games that he's been to, and and the couple that I've been to, you can cut the energy with a knife. It's or the because it's the stress level that's in this building or at the stadium. It's like nothing. It's like nothing you've ever, at least for me, that I've ever experienced. And when you're there, have you ever experienced any of that? Have you been to any of those kind of games?
Yes and no. I don't think anything professionally that I can think of. Some college games. Growing up in Tucson, you're automatically an Arizona Wildcats fan. And again, we're good in basketball, but for a while we weren't, but for a while we were. And so when the Wildcats were good, we were able to go to some home games and playoff games. But I don't think I've been to anything professionally. However, my better half, David, is a college basketball coach. And so for me, going to their home games is always stressful. No matter regular season game, playoff game, whatever, I'm always at a very high stress level.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to experience. You can not like a sports fan just to kind of be a part of it.
My parents said that Game 3 Stanley Cup against Vancouver, because I know it's Game 3 now. It's because I hadn't played in the Stanley Cup in a while there. I think it was 90s the last time they were and they said it was unbelievable. All the events they had going out there, people were just so pumped up. Yeah. Then they won the game too, but they said it was unbelievable, the atmosphere in there. And we went to a game, Brian. Remember you got the suite one year? We played against Washington. They lost in overtime.
Was that playoffs?
It was the first. Yeah, it was first round. It was the first round.
I don't even remember. I try to forget all the painful stuff.
Yeah,
so I actually have one more that I'm going to pass over to JP. I'm curious your opinion on this. We never really talked about it. Do you think they should college amateur players be paid?
Yes. I mean, I think that they've already been taken advantage of, as it is, my personal opinion, with the stuff that's being sold with their likeness, or more likely their clothing. You're getting numbers with someone on there. These guys and these colleges making hand over fist on them. And then these poor kids, they just want to anything they do work wise, they can't even work. They can't do any of this stuff because then it's classified as taking money of some sort. And JP probably would be able to answer this better than I do, because she knows with their better half being involved with college sports. It's just ridiculous. I think they should be paid.
I agree on that. JP, what do you think?
I don't know how I can comment on that, so I'm not going to.
That's true. Don't say it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. No, but I do know what Derek's talking about, because I think it's a couple of the Alabama football players. There are students that have now made $1 million just off their likeness, which is pretty nuts.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they've actually decided to bring back they're bringing back the college football for the PlayStation now, but they're allowing people with likeness. Yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It shouldn't be paid for.
Yeah, agreed. JP, what you got for Derek?
I didn't really have any pick ones planned. I didn't know that was part of this, but the only one that I could come up with, which is the question everybody asks, is, for basketball, the debate is always Jordan or LeBron, who's the better.
Jordan or LeBron? Oh, Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a question mark. I mean, I think Jordan by far. I was like, why? I mean, just like someone was saying the other day, we were trying to compare Tatum to Bird. I said, why is anyone comparing anyone to anyone? Just leave him be. Right. Let him be. I mean, who cares?
They're all good.
Exactly. I really don't care who's they win your championship. That's all that matters.
I don't. As long as he puts that ball in the hoop, I don't.
Yeah, I really don't care.
So
I mean, really,
it's just funny to see how passionate people get about it.
Yeah, but it's a player. I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't go look at some of the like the better players for the Steelers and like, oh, was so and so was better. I really don't care. I mean, Bradshaw is an example for the Steelers. It wasn't like he was an unbelievable quarterback. I'm not going to compare him to Roethlisberger because he won 4. Bradshaw won 4 and Roethlisberger won 2. You know what I mean? It's just everyone had their own ways of getting to it.
Well, and there's been so many advances. I mean, I feel like, especially in football, now they've got the play-by-plays on their little Microsoft tablets that they can review after every play. They didn't have that when Bradshaw was playing.
Exactly.
You have to go off paper or just memory. So it's just very different. And the age difference between the two, Jordan, LeBron specifically, I'm with you. I don't think you can really fairly compare.
No. I mean, why? I don't know. I think people get into arguments over it.
Because people love to debate, Derek. That's why.
I know. I mean, and that's fine. Because you know what? They want to debate and stuff like that. That's a matter of opinion, and you can go back and forth.
Right.
Oh man, we'll have more after, Doug. I got some more I'm going to throw at you, but let's get started. And I've been since JP kind of came up with the idea of this. I think it's
Gavin.
Yeah, he's strolling around. He's got I'll let it do it. It's okay. He has a championship game on Sunday.
Oh really?
For his team, so
gotta rest up.
Yeah, I better go get some rest.
Did they change it to Sunday?
Saturday. Did I say Sunday?
Yeah.
Saturday.
Gavin did a great job up there. I saw him give his little.
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. So I lost my train of thought. So let's just start.
Yeah.
So, all right. So for this BNaz business chat, we are gonna sort of turn the microphone on ourselves, like we talked about earlier, on a co-host. One of the 3 guys, is Derek DePetrillo. So for me personally, I go back, Derek. If I was to pick the year, probably 1987. If I was to pick the exact years, probably how far back we go. Certainly one of the my closest friends to this day. We've been through a lot together. JP, when I drove from. Actually, my first time going from Boston to San Diego, Derek went with me. And there's a story there that's not appropriate for this show. Not that it's just not relative to what we're talking about here, but been through a lot. He went to play hockey together, went to 2 different schools together. My commuting buddy, I used to knock over his change jar every single morning. Remember they used to have the change on the middle of the console? I used to knock that over, about $7 in pennies and nickels each day. to get our day going.
We were in history class together. He left me papers like ripped up. I don't know what it was.
We've traveled. We've been to Mexico together.
Yep.
We've been. Man, I feel like we've been home. It's like we have like
California.
Yeah, we've been to California. We were supposed to go to Canada at some point. We never did that. I don't remember that back in college, but we obviously did the whole spring break stuff together. So Derek's a good dude. I'm happy to call him a friend in this show. I've enjoyed doing this show with you, Derek. So really excited that you're going to sort of talk a little bit about your own business, maybe the journey getting to your business and what you do and sort of what your passion about it is, and go from there. So without any further ado, Derek, tell us a bit about what you're up to.
Well, as you know, Brian, and I know I sent the information. I have a law office. It's called Consumer Rights Law Office. We're out of North Andover, Massachusetts. But what I do is it's all federal law. It's helping consumers who are being harassed by debt collectors. I also help consumers that have issues with their credit reporting. If you were to review your credit report and you say, "Wow, something's wrong. I don't understand why this is on here," and you dig through the investigation, you find out, hey, this doesn't belong here, it shouldn't be on here. You then send a dispute letter into one of the 3 credit bureaus, whoever it's being reported to, and people will say, hey, listen, it doesn't belong here and why. And if they come back and say, nope, it still belongs on there, you can go after either the credit bureau or the reporting agency. And we go after them to take it off your credit report if it doesn't belong. And the good thing about what I do under the FDCPA, which is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and the FCRA, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, is that it's federal law, which means there's statutory damages. So people can get between $100 and $1,000, and the offending party pays my attorney's fees. So there's never any out-of-pocket expenses passed on to the consumer. So consumer calls up and says, hey, I'm having problems. We go through the process. Yeah, I think you have a valid claim. Let's go forward. And at the end of the day, either the agency says, yep, you know what? We made a mistake. Here's the settlement. Or they say, no, we didn't make a mistake, and we realized maybe they didn't make a mistake. But either way, the consumer is never responsible for paying out-of-pocket expenses. And that's why I always tell people this is a bonus, because no one has to call up and say, no, am I getting harassed by debt collectors and I can't pay them? Now I have to hire an attorney. I can't even pay them to help me. So this law was put in effect essentially to help the consumer not have to pay out-of-pocket expenses. And at least I get paid for my attorney's fees as well.
So how did you get into that sector specifically? Were you working at an overall general law firm that practiced all kinds of law, and you just sort of gravitated towards that, or did it always pique your interest?
No, I was working when I was interning. Well, I wasn't interning. I had worked at a couple of different law offices, just this basically one day a week, just helping out, trying to get my foot in the door. One of them was a general practice. Mostly it was geared towards. It was actually in the movie theater. And what I mean by the movie theater hired this law office to assist with any of their insurance claims that came up. So I knew the gentleman, and he put me in touch. And one of my good friends, who's a good friend of ours, he worked over there, and they put me in the door, and I started working over there doing helping out with just coming up with questions for depositions, and it was more geared towards like insurance claims. I went to mediations and learned that aspect of it. And then in the meantime, at the same time, I also worked prior to that in the legal field, because my mother works the district attorney's office. So she knew some attorneys, and I got hired over there. Not hired, I shouldn't say. I wasn't paid. I was just basically, hey, go over here and learn the ropes. I travel with them, try to figure out how the criminal. So I went from one civil to criminal, and then I was doing that for a while. I was working full time as general manager of the movie theater. And then if someone had come to me and said, listen, they did marketing for this type of law. They said, you should look to get into this because this is a good field. So I looked into basically the civil, which is the FDCPA. And I said, yeah, I think it's a good idea because not many people do it. It's different. It is federal law. You have to get admitted if you want to file cases into federal courts. But federal court's a little easier. A lot of them I can just apply to, get in. Whereas if I have to get into a state court, get admitted to a state level, I have to take tests to pass it. It's not simple. So I said, yeah. So I took the leap of faith when I was working, and I enjoyed it from there, and it just took off. And once you get used to it, after a while, it becomes like secondhand, just like anything else. But yeah, we've got it down pat. We do the marketing. We do blogs. We set up everything, and it's a good setup right now. Where I've had my ups and downs between student loans. Student loans years ago were a big thing, part of my business. And then they changed the way they do student loans now, where you can pay nominal amount of money, and they don't harass you. I'm not saying they all harass, and I don't want to take that as being the case. But if you offer, hey, listen, can you pay $10 a month? These student loans, like, yep, you can take that, and they don't bother people. So we don't get the student loan leads anymore, but we do get calls for medical, credit cards. That's the majority of it.
So knowing that your mom worked in the DA's office, is that how your interests originally peaked, or you've just always been analytical and something you've enjoyed?
I didn't really know if I wanted to do criminal. I mean, I wasn't really where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
When you hear about it, it's just almost like divorce. They tell you divorce, you don't want, as an attorney, you don't want to go down that road of becoming a divorce attorney because there's a lot of stress. Criminal can be the same way. I mean, not only that, I really don't. I'd have a hard problem, and I'll be the first one to say it, to represent someone involved with any type of involvement with kids, rape. I don't know if I'd go down that road, and that's not. Yeah. It's better I just stayed away from it. So, and only that, everyone's trying to fight to get it. And then if you really, I hate to say it, But when you work in the DA's office, you can get a lot of experience that way. But at the same time, you don't get paid much. So it's a tough, but at least you gain a lot of experience. But I think these individuals who work at that level should get paid accordingly. I think that they should get paid some decent money. I think you may lose a lot of attorneys that way because they say, listen, I only can do this for so long before I have to go on my own or go on the other side because I don't make enough money. And that's the sad thing about it.
Yeah. Well, gosh, so when people are contacting you, as you mentioned, like student loans or credit card debt, is it because maybe they have fallen behind on their payments and so the company is looking to get what they feel they're owed, or why? Not why would somebody contact you, but what sort of spells that first call to you?
Well, it's not because most of the they've all fallen behind. Not all instances, but sometimes they've fallen behind.
Sure.
But they're not calling me because they fall behind. They call me because under the FDCPA, there is a list of violations or guidelines that they have to follow as a third-party debt collector, not the original lender, the third-party debt collector. Like you can't threaten a lawsuit if you don't intend to move forward. So a lot of collection agencies will throw out that word. Hey, not that they, some of them will do this. Hey, we're gonna sue you. Well, unless you're a law office or you regularly sue, you can't throw that word out there. You can't call someone before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. You can't. If I called you at your place of employment, you said, "Hey, I can't accept calls at work," then I can't call you again. And if I call you again, that's a violation. Me calling a third party, like if I said I was called Dave, I said, "Hey, you know what?" Only because let me use a better example. Let's say I call Brian. I said, "Brian, I'm trying to get in touch with JP," and you're like, "Well, Brian's like, well, what's going on?" "Oh, well, she owes a debt." That's the third party disclosure. You can't do that. There's a list. You can't threaten wage garnishment. Wage garnishment only happens in federal loans, which the feds can do automatically, or they can happen in private student loans if you take someone to court. But you never know the outcome. You could take someone to court. It doesn't mean a judge automatically awards you garnishment. They could try to work something out. It doesn't mean you can't. Sometimes you can't get blood from a stone. The person doesn't have money. Doesn't have money. You can't. They don't work. They don't work. So how do you do that? How do you get liens if someone doesn't own property? So sometimes they'll throw out those terms. You can't threaten, "Hey, this is going to negatively affect your credit report." Well, it's not fair to the individual because you don't know what's going to happen. You can't threaten. You can't use leverage by saying, "Well, if you don't pay this, it's going to affect your credit report." And there's a list of it's a long list of other things that you can go through that, misleading someone and, getting on the phone and basically calling someone, names. It's like, you're like, "Hey, you're a rundown, useless piece of crap." I don't want to get into it, but you can get, those are things you can get.
Yeah, I was looking at your website and you've got a lot of bullet points on there of things that classify as, I don't know if it's harassment or whatnot, but a collection, I guess. And I was surprised to see a lot of them on there. Yeah,
I think a lot of people are. That's why I don't think a lot of people understand this side of the law. And it was funny today. I was my father laughed on this one. I went out and I took him out for breakfast. So I was coming back and I was in New Hampshire and I stopped. I had a $5 scratch ticket. So I went in there and I was grabbing some cigars and I heard this woman say something. Oh, who works there? She's like, "Oh, I heard something about, process serving and this and that." And I said, so I just I hung in the background and my father said, "What's the matter?" I go, "I'll tell you later." So when she walked outside, I walked outside. I said, "Listen, I don't mean I wasn't trying to overhear you, but I said, what did you get called?" It's just like, I didn't want it to be criminal because I don't want to get involved with that. So she came to, she's like, "No, someone threatened to process serve me," which that's typical. People, and it's usually scam collection agencies. So I was trying to help her out and "Oh, let me see the message." And I was going through the process. And at the end of the day, it was more than 100% a scam. But I overheard her talking about it. And that's what triggered I'm like, whoa, maybe I can help her. So things like that pop up. And I was just trying to help her. And I spent 15 minutes talking to her. And,
wow.
But, never know, what happens. But yeah, there's a lot. And so my concern with that is that someone like her would make a payment and that money would be gone because the debt was probably from 15 years ago, which means not a statute of limitations, which you can't be sued on. And the company was more than likely a fake. And if they're a fake, that money is not going to the debt that she had. It's going to their pockets.
Yeah. Send it in Lowe's gift cards. Don't send it cash.
Exactly how they
send
do it.
in Lowe's gift cards.
Well, and they'll ask you, they won't tell you an address. You can't send a check. You can't send it. They'll ask, and this is typical of a scam. Yeah, can you go get a cash card? Because if you put money on one of those cards, they'll never know where it goes to. If I put on my credit card, I'll know who the person is, and I'll find out where they are, and you can get the money back. But if you don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like scamming is increasing in every possible area, especially since COVID. So Derek, I want to back up a little bit because we skipped sort of how you even got into practicing law. And I think that might be good to hear as well. Because you touched it a little bit in the beginning. So you worked at a movie theater for a long time. So talk a little bit about sort of your when you were finishing college, sort of, because you originally were going to be a general manager of the theater. So touch on that part and then sort of your evolution into taking the bar and go from there.
Yeah, so I was working. When I was in college, I worked in the movie theater. I was working as an usher. I worked my way up to a supervisor, and I was working there when I was going to school with you, both in Northern Essex and then Salem State. I was a criminal justice major. After I got out, I graduated. There was an option, to become a manager because they had lost a manager at the movie theater. And I said, yeah, I'll do this for a couple of years just so I can. I already know the business, so I'll stay here and do this. And then maybe a year or two later, after I graduated, it was more than that. There was an option. I was like, do I go get back and get my master's degree, or do I go to law school? And the only reason why law school popped up is one of the classes I took in my associate's degree. The woman was an attorney, and when we had like a case, we had to do a case. It was a drunk driving case, and one of the individuals on the other side was a police officer, and I was like, I think it was the defense attorney or something like that. So I went through the whole process, and he did the other one. And she told me after, she's like, you should really think about going to law school. So I just said, yeah, whatever. I'm not, that's back then. I was still relatively young, and it was just my associate's degree, and I had a way to go. So after I thought about it, I said, well, if I go my master's degree, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because it's criminal justice. The only thing I can really do is probation officer. How much more education do I need to become I know in the police now, they can get, as a police officer, you can get more money under certain bills, because if you're, but aside from that, I still had to get on as a police officer. So I decided to give law school a shot. And I did the first year, and I didn't know how I was going to get by, because at the same time I started law school, we lost the general manager, and they asked me to become the general manager at the same time. And I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to be able to do both, because this is going to be a little tough. But I said, well, I'll take the extra money at this time and, do them both. So I was going 3 nights a week. So I'd go from work, I'd get in around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and I'd work till 6. And then from 6 to like 10, I'd go to school. I did that the first year, and I got through it. So once you get through the first year, they tell you then you should be golden from there. So from there, I finished out. I just extended it. Most people can graduate 2 or 3 years. I went about 3.5, just because I didn't have the time to put in like everyone else. But my school, Mass School of Law, which was geared towards 100% geared to people who worked. So a lot of people I went to school with, I wasn't the only one, were working full-time jobs as well.
Sorry, JP, I thought you were going to jump in. Did you freeze?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So what you originally weren't, your field of law wasn't what it was when you went. What you are doing now wasn't the same when you entered. So talk a little bit about that avenue.
So when you're in law school, they go through. So you take basic classes in the beginning that you have to take as part of your curriculum. Contract, criminal law. There's a bunch of them, but there's additional classes. Then after that, you can take your own electives, a part of your class. What I am doing now was never discussed in school. What you're going through is basically you take the classes, and whatever class. I took a wills and trust class as an elective, and it's just a little too much. But you can take all these extra classes, and then it gives you an idea of what you want to do. But when you take the bar exam, you can essentially do whatever you want for law. And a lot of people will go in different directions, whether, maybe someone works somewhere and they say, hey, I'm going to go into the legal field where I'm doing. But what I did was not what I'm doing now was never something that you taught in school, other than maybe Massachusetts like demand letters. But aside from that, it's not. And I always tell people I would rather have the bar exam is one thing that's fine, but I think having a more hands-on approach, where if I spent a year doing something like hands-on, going into court and feeling how to file a notice of appearance and just doing basic stuff, would have been much more beneficial than me sitting down and answering questions. It's just to me, that's what they don't teach you in law school. I mean, you can take classes that you can do it, but still not the same. I mean, how do you basically teach someone sometimes if you run a business, right? Hey, you know you're going to be a lawyer, but you may be your own business. How do you run your own business and weigh between being ethically doing it the right way and then having a client that you have to represent and trying to make money at the same time? Those are a lot of things that you don't sometimes you don't learn. I took an ethics exam. I had to take that, and I had to take the bar exam. But at the end of the day, I would have rather hands-on. That would have been much more beneficial.
That's where the real world experience comes into play.
Exactly.
So is it taught now in schools what you specialize in, or still not really? It's just something you have to know
I
about?
mean, I remember seeing it as an elective. No, I don't remember seeing it as an elective. I think it's for all the laws out there, all different types of law you can practice. I think it'd be tough for them to have someone come in and specialize it. There might be schools that do it. I don't know. I mean, when I was in my school, mass school law, I don't recall ever seeing that subject pop up. It just happened to be someone who was marketing for it and mentioned it to me as something I should think about because not many people were involved with it. And it was actually something that, and I talked to someone else about it. They're like, yeah, that's something different. You definitely should, look into that because not a lot of people, even you don't want to get involved with something where everyone and their grandmother's doing it because then everyone, I mean, how many criminal attorneys? And then if you want a criminal attorney, some people say, okay, and I've seen it before. Well, I've had a criminal attorney that recommended someone, and someone said, well, I don't want to go to him. I'm like, why? Well, he doesn't cost as much as this one. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Well, because he knows what he's doing. I'm like, all right, then go with them. I'm not telling, but I'm telling you right now, not one attorney is to be able to get you through the court system any faster than the next. That's not happening. This is unethical. I can't tell someone that, oh, don't worry, JP, if you got a criminal drug charge, I'll get you through quicker than you don't have to wait 6 months. I'll get you through faster. And someone said that to someone, I'm like, that ain't gonna happen.
Right.
So Derek, go ahead, JP. No, go ahead.
You go.
Also, you're based here in Massachusetts.
Yep.
So are you exclusively servicing people that are having those issues here in Massachusetts, or are you able to help people in other areas of the country?
No, we help people all across the country. Yep. I've had clients as far away as Alaska and Hawaii.
So are you a part of like a network with that you work with other law firms, or you?
So I do. Yeah, I do have local counsel we work with across the country. We have a few different law offices and law firms that we work with. They help, but a lot of times, a lot of these agencies we work with, we sent over pre-suit demand letters, and basically it is to say, hey, we think you may have violated the law. Can you look into it ahead of time? It saves money for both sides, and a lot of these companies would prefer that you do a pre-suit demand letter because they don't get named in a lawsuit in federal court, and then their name doesn't pop up, and then they got to pay someone extra. It doesn't make sense for these debt collection companies to say, okay, well, I don't want a pre-suit demand letter. Let's go to court, because if they win, they have to pay. What are they getting? Nothing, right? I mean, for me, they're gonna have to pay an attorney to represent them, and it's a federal court. A lot of attorneys now in federal court are getting paid a lot more. So this just doesn't make sense. So a lot of them say, "Yep, send over a demand letter. Let me review it. I appreciate it." I haven't had one. When I first started, some of them were really, could be stubborn about it, but not now. They have a lot of them like, yeah, just send it over. Let me review it. And it saves aggravation because at the end of the day, it makes, just like anything else, they'll tell you 99% of these claims, just in general, not just my field, never make it to whether the court or never make it to court. Make it to the next level, which is a trial.
So JP, I don't think I've told you my wife and I had a nightmare situation with a contractor. And I'm not going to waste the time of this podcast to go into it, but some of the stuff that Derek's mentioning, I dealt with. In fact, he helped me with a demand letter. So Derek, because I didn't know what a demand letter was. So talk about what the process of a demand letter, what's the purpose of a demand letter?
So a demand letter, like Massachusetts has one where a lot of times they require a demand letter. It's called an I3A, and it's basically, it gives the other side. Massachusetts rather have you send a demand letter so you can try to work things out. Demand letter, what I do is it spells out alleged violations of what we believe may have happened based on what the client's telling us. And then we send it over to the other side to review the allegations. It doesn't have to be like a complaint. Complaint usually has to be more fact driven. You have to be like, okay, on this date, this happened, this happened. Within obviously what they believe has happened. With demand letter, you can be a little bit more, add stuff to it. I mean, not embellish it, but you can, it's not being admitted to a court. It's basically submitted to the other side to review as a part of the process of possible settlement or not a settlement. And they review the allegations, and a lot of these agencies have recordings, and they'll say, yep, we reviewed the recording, and we may have violated the law and we want to settle. And sometimes they'll say, nope, it doesn't match up to what you have, and we don't want to settle. And we go back to the client and say, listen, they don't want to settle. So, are you sure what you're saying is accurate? Because if we have to move forward, there could be problems because they're telling us otherwise. So, I mean, it's a basic, it's just a letter that says, hey, you know what? And not a complaint where a complaint goes through that says, yep, X, A, B, C, D, and happen. And it outlines everything. It's more fact driven than, a demand letter where we can say, all right, this is what the client said. We'll throw it in there and see if that, if this is what actually happened.
So you mentioned maybe only a very small percentage actually go to a trial or whatnot. And so is it usually more of a plea bargain type of thing, or is it either it's this they owe or not? I mean, is it pretty self-explanatory, or can it be a process?
If I submit a demand letter, when I submit a demand letter, it's basically, we give a demand amount. We say, hey, listen, if you're interested in settling in the case, the alleged facts are what they are. With our clients saying, we give a demand letter, and then they'll say, yep, we believe, a plea bargain in your instance, that's more criminal. That's criminal. Okay. Yeah. Where like if you're, Brian was arrested for drunk driving and he went to the plea bargain with the prosecution because, they were trying to make an agreement where Brian wouldn't have to go to trial. That's a different story. These will usually never, unless you're trying to make new case law where people are arguing the gray area. Just like that's what lawyers do. They argue the gray area. Yeah. But these are pretty simple. They're almost like strict liability where did you threaten lawsuit? I better yet, did you call him before 8 a.m.? If I have records to show you call him at 7:55 a.m. or 7:30 a.m., well, what are we arguing about here? It is what it is. The strict liability. You broke the law.
So just to make sure I'm clear on how the process works, if I have a complaint versus a company that's trying to collect money from me, the very first step is the demand letter. Is that correct?
Well, the first step was to be if you were to call into my office, if you thought you believed, hey, you were involved in some type of harassment, the first step would be like, okay, let me call any type of law office. It doesn't have to be mine, whatever, any law office that handles these type of matters. And you say, okay, listen, this individual company, I told them not to call me at my place of employment. They continue to call me. And I say, okay, would you have records? Whatever we have. Gotcha. And that's why I say a complaint, usually you're going to be a little more factor and you can have more records that you're going to try to show. Whereas a demand letter, you say, okay, I'm not going to start digging through your phone records to start. If you believe that's happened, we'll submit it. And if we need additional evidence, we can get it. Otherwise, the other side knows they'll have it because if we file a lawsuit, we're going to get it in discovery. So it doesn't make sense for them to stop playing. No, it's not there. I mean, they either did or didn't happen. So, and then we'd say, okay, we believe we sign it. We send over a representation agreement. The individual consumer reads it and says, okay, yep, that's fine. And the representation agreement gives me the right to represent you or whoever in a potential, whether demand or a lawsuit. I then say, okay, sign you up. Once they sign up, then I say, okay, I draw up a demand letter. The demand letter that goes over to the collection agency, and the collection agency then reviews it, usually within 30 days. Some of them review faster, some of them longer. And then they come back with a response. Yep, we believe we made a mistake and we want to settle the case. Nope, it didn't happen according to this. And here's proof that it didn't happen. And we go from there. So yes, the beginning step is, but as a consumer, your first step is to believe, hey, am I getting harassed? And then calling the law office.
So you would discern whether or not they broke any kind of law prior to, and then the demand letter.
Yeah. So you would call me up and say, hey, like you did to me. You said, this guy, whatever is happening with your issues. And I said, okay, well, this is what you can do. It would be the same way. If someone said, hey, you know what? This company's been harassing me. A lot of people say that's the initial call. Someone's harassing me. And I'm like, okay, well, what is your definition of harassment? Well, they keep on calling me. Well, that's not harassment. I mean, just because they continue to call you, I hang up the phone on them. Well, how is that harassment on their end? They're just trying to call you, collect the debt. Not all debt collection companies are bad. They're trying to do their job. Some of them make mistakes. Some of them are more egregious than others. Yeah. But it's not something that that's why people say that. So I have to dig deeper and say, okay, well, what are they doing wrong? Did they do this? Did they do that? And if they say no, then I'm like, well, what's the problem? And they'll tell me. And I said, well, that's not breaking the law. And then, or I'll tell them, yeah, it is breaking the law. Like, hey, they called me up and they threatened to sue me. And if I know the name of the company, I'm like, all right, I know this company doesn't sue. And they're just trying to use that scare tactic to make you a payment.
And at the end of the day, they don't pay you. You get paid out of the settlement from the company, correct?
Yeah. So any type of settlement, we negotiate our attorney's fees and our clients. We try to get as much as possible for both parties, and that's part of the settlement. And we go back to the client saying this is their offering. Do you will and accept? And that's the best thing. Like I said, no out-of-pocket expenses. So when they make a settlement offer, if they make a lump sum, but that's how it is, our attorney's fees are included as part of the settlement, and the client can get between $100 and $1,000.
Oh, that's awesome. So do you find that there's like repeat common offenders? If somebody calls you and say, hey, I keep hearing from X, Y, and Z company, is that a common thing in your practice or not really? It's not.
What, the company does the same problems? Like the same company?
Yeah. I saw on your website that, hey, maybe you've heard from this person or this person.
Yeah.
So
well, what we do is, what we do is blogs on just about every debt collection company. There's educational blogs saying, hey, if you're getting calls from this company, give us a call. But there's a lot of same offending companies out there. Yeah, there are.
Yeah, I recommend anybody go and look at the blog, because there was one that you just posted today, right? Today's the 1st, or yesterday? Yep. Today? That was up there as recently as today. There's a lot of great information on there.
Yeah, we try to throw them as much as possible. That's where we get a lot of our leads from. People will call in. And I know a lot of collection agencies get up, some of them that are involved in the negative aspect of this. They get upset. And I say, I'm not saying you're breaking the law. All I'm saying is, if this is happening, to give us a call, and it's not my fault that your company is breaking the law.
Right.
Derek, I want to switch gears again a little bit. You mentioned it early on, not as much about debt, but if there's an error on your credit report.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go deeper a little bit into that? Because I have a feeling not everyone, a lot of people have to deal with credit report issues, especially if they're buying a house, buying a car, or whatever it may be.
So you're always entitled to a free credit report once a year from the 3 credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion. But I always tell people, do yourself a favor. I've signed up for Credit Karma. Credit Karma is free. Mm-hmm. I get emails all the time from Credit Karma saying, here, check your score. Yeah. Why your score may be affected. The other day, someone did a hard inquiry on mine because I was looking to get financing for something, and I knew about it. But if I didn't know about it, and I would have been like, well, what the hell is this? Why is this showing up on my credit report? So I always tell people, get Credit Karma. Credit Karma, look it over. If something's being reported, it also helps you too, because you can see they'll tell you what's, not this is an advertisement for Credit Karma, but they'll tell you, hey, you know what, you're spending too much, this is too much, this is why your credit score is too low. But more importantly, it tells people if there's credit on there, or there's debts on there that they don't know about. And usually sometimes it's medical debts that sometimes go on there, which I know down the road it's not going to be on there much longer. They're going to take it off as in the next month or so. But any type of credit card you had in the past, you didn't realize it. And sometimes it happens when people were married and they get divorced. And sometimes, as part of the divorce settlement, well, this person was supposed to take care of this debt. But remember, credit card companies don't know that. So they're just thinking, okay, you both accumulated this debt. I'm going after A. So let's say they go after the ex-husband. The next person doesn't pay it. Well, the next person on the list is now the ex-wife. So maybe they get reported. So people, I tell them, just check your credit report. Sometimes on your credit report, you'll see it's basically a negative mark, which says you owe a debt from this company. This is the original lender. You owe X amount. And you should review it and say, okay, yeah, I did owe this amount. That makes sense. And that gives people a chance to pay it off, because then your credit score is now affected in a positive way, You can get financing, better financing rates, better chance of getting financed. So I always tell people, because people won't find out until they're buying something, a house, a car.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What happened here? Why am I getting denied on my mortgage, or why can't I get a mortgage, or why can't I get financing for a vehicle? So that's always big. So in some instances, there's, people will get, another big one is cable companies, because some people don't return the equipment. So they'll get on there and I'll be like, well, Comcast is reporting this on my credit report. I'm like, well, let me check. So they would send over the information. I had someone send it a couple of years ago, and I said, yeah, because you didn't return the equipment. And they're like, oh, so, or there was fees that were added on there because the equipment wasn't returned. So the fees got added up after the fact. So those things that slip through the cracks, people don't realize. So I always tell them, well, let's look it over, make sure. And then I tell you, if you're still 100% sure that this doesn't belong on your credit report, send a dispute letter to the credit bureau that's responding, that's just reporting. And then what the credit bureau does is then sends that letter off to the original lender, or whoever's reporting, debt collector, says, listen, this consumer is disputing the debt. Give us information. Sometimes they'll take it off because they don't want to deal with it, because they know it's a problem. They're like, just take it off. You know what I mean? And other times they'll say, nope, it belongs on here. This is the reason why. And then the credit bureau will send a response back saying, yep, here's the breakdown of why it belongs on here. The original lender said X, Y, and Z. Here's all the information. They have 30 days to respond back. Now, if it comes back and you say, listen, that doesn't belong here, and I have proof that doesn't belong here, then I would say, okay, let's try to send a demand letter over and see what their response is from there. And then we go from there and see, does it belong on there? Does it not belong on there? And I don't get as, there are a lot of FCRA complaints out there. We don't get as many in my office now. I always tell people dispute it, and then we'll go from there. Because if you dispute it, sometimes people just take it off. They don't want to deal with it.
So if somebody disputes it, or if the company ends up taking it off or whatnot, how long does that take to reflect on your credit, typically on your credit score? Is it pretty quick?
Well, if it's taken off, so a lot of times, like, if it's taken off your credit report, sometimes it takes like 30 to 60 days. Because sometimes, like, if we settle cases, sometimes if we know with like a debt buyer, they're sometimes willing to waive the debt and take it off their credit report. And I always tell people, listen, you got to give it time. It's not going to happen overnight to take it off.
Right.
Because the debt collection companies are not the credit bureaus, so they can't be held responsible. They'll submit a response saying, listen, a letter saying, listen, take it off there. And the credit bureaus have time. Usually sometimes it takes up to 60 days, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes shorter. Yeah. Usually your score, once it's taken off, is affected right away. You'll see that even if it's in a negative way, where you get something slapped on there and you're like, why did my credit score drop? Someone did maybe a hard inquiry, a hard pull or soft pull, or someone did something popped up because you owed something and you didn't realize it.
So Derek, give the name of your law firm.
It's Consumer Rights Law Firm.
Website and phone number.
It's consumerrightslawfirm.com, and then it's 978-212-3300. That's our main line. But we have a lot of, if you go on our websites or our blogs, like JP was on, you'll see an 888 number that we use as well. But that's, people want to call in the blogs. But that 978-212-3300, that's our main line.
And then I know you're, go ahead, JP.
I was going to say, I think I even saw you have, I think it said live agent. I don't know if it said virtual or live agent. Like you can type a message on your website, right?
Yep. We can do that too. So some people didn't feel comfortable. They didn't want to call in. I actually have it on my cell phone, where we have, again, I have people that do that. I only follow up if they're not around, but we have live chat. It's a live chat. So people can reach out to us and say, hey, you know what, I got this going on. And then we can review your case that way. And if we think it's a case, we'll say, hey, listen, we have to talk to you a little further. But, can we talk to you on the phone? And a lot of times they'll say, yeah. And that's another way of speaking to us. You don't have to call in as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it helps out because some people don't want to, they're busy or at work, they're doing something and they can do two things at once. They don't want to get on the phone and have the discussion. I get it.
Yeah. And then Derek, touch on the you mentioned the blogs. Touch on what the blogs are if people to go to the website.
So the blogs are they're educational blogs. What they spell out, it says, listen, if you're being harassed, here's some options. This is what to look for if you're being harassed. If you think you're being harassed, give us a call. Here's the better. A lot of times we have links to the Better Business Bureau sites for these companies so they can do their own research to see that. We tell them, listen, this company's, and all the blogs we do are for companies that are legit. So people go on there, they think they're being scammed. We always tell them, listen, this company is not a scam. They're a legit company. So if you think you're having issues, give us a call. It's got links to the Attorney General's office so people can make their own complaints. It's got links to our website, our phone numbers. So it's basically just an educational review of everything, and it doesn't say that these companies are violating the law. It just says if they're doing any of this, give us a call. It tells you how you can write your own cease and desist letter. If you want to do it yourself and you don't want to get involved, you just want the company to stop calling you. It tells you how to do that, what to do. It just gives a lot of information. We try to help the consumer so that they, one, can figure out what their rights are, and two, if they think that maybe they don't even, they're not, the law isn't being broken, but they just want to stop the calls, they can do their own thing, and other things of how to negotiate their own settlements. We try to throw as much information in there as possible to help educate the consumer.
I feel like my big takeaway is, first things first, if you're not sure, reach out to an attorney and share with that attorney exactly what is happening, and let him or her define whether or not it's technically harassment, legally.
Well, you know what? The better than that is the fact that if you think the companies that you're dealing with is a scam, you can always call our office. We'd be I'd rather you not make a payment to someone that's not going to go to. It's just going to someone else's pocket, and there are enough of them out there. Like this, when I talked to this woman today, I mean, she was, visibly concerned the fact that she thought someone was going to come to her house on June 3rd and serve her. I mean, that's that you can't. It's almost like the IRS calling with these fake names. And I always try to help. Like, that was one thing I wanted to do over here, was to as I said, I'd go there because I know someone who works at the senior center. I said, I'll be happy to go over there and just let people know, don't make payments. I mean, we're not going to get paid for that. That's fine. But I'd rather not someone, I feel bad when people throw money out the window and they'll never see it again because someone made these false threats and they're not even a legit company.
You know what we didn't touch on, Derek, and I feel like this is one of the things you talked to me about a while ago, is we think of harassment as mail or phone call, but there's texting too.
There's texting. There's actually Facebook now allows them to go on social media now with these debt collectors. They can go on without disclosing the debt and harassing someone. But yeah, I mean, you can get letters. Like if I sent a letter to, let's say I sent a letter to JP, you can't have on the outside of the letter that they're a debt collection company. You can't be said that. Nothing with debt, because if someone sees it, that's disclosing the debt to a third party, and they can say, listen, you should. So that's frowned upon. Like Massachusetts has strict laws where I can't write out what's it called? A check that's for a later date, post-dated check.
Post-dated check. Yeah.
For a post-dated check, because it's against the law. So a lot of states have their own. They duplicate the federal law, but they make some of them stronger. But there's a lot of things out there that aside from that. So Brian's right. Text messaging is another way of people. If you didn't sign up for it, somebody can't be texting you. There used to be a law called, it was it's still there. It's the TCPA, it's Telephone Consumer Protection Act. It was for auto dialers, but it's gone haywire, and there's not really there's not much teeth to it now, like it used to have. It's still out there, but it's more.
Was that the do not call thing?
No, that's something separate. The TCPA was mostly banks. So what they do is, what the best thing is to make more calls in a day. You put someone in an auto dialer and they just continue to call until the person picks up. So you can receive like 9-10 calls a day to your cell phone. The problem was, to your cell phone back in the day, most of the time people would remember to pay by the minute, right? So every time you got a call, you're getting jacked up on prices. Yeah. But the banks or debt collection companies were having a field day because they can put you in the system and call you 9, 10, 10, but they're not pushing the button to actually call you. They're just pushing one button to call you. They're not dialing your number. It's just easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Derek, what are we missing? Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think would be really good for our listeners to know about what you do personally, certain kinds of other harassment that maybe we didn't touch on, or anything? Is there anything else we should touch on?
Business, just people understand business debt does not fall under the FDCPA. I know some people get, and some of the business, I've gotten calls from people, and some of the business individuals that call by far worse than some of the individual debt collectors. And I think because they can get away with it. But for so business that doesn't apply, like I couldn't help someone if someone's getting calls for traffic fines, anything that has to do with like civil fines, a divorce settlement that doesn't fall into collection, child support that doesn't fall into debt collection. So stuff like that doesn't fall under there. But I guess the main thing is you want to know is if you think it's something shady and you don't think it's right, then just call an attorney, and that doesn't have to be my office. Just call someone and ask them, listen, does this seem legit before you make a payment? And because there are a lot of shady companies out there, but there's also a lot of good companies out there and a lot of great debt collection companies that do work with consumers. And listen, some of them make mistakes, just like everyone else. So but just don't make a payment to someone, because once it's gone, there's no way. If they're not a legit company, I can't get it back. There's no way, and the bank won't be able to stop it either because you're making a payment some other way.
Once it's paid, it's paid. You're kind of out of luck.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I can't trade. My father asked me, "What can you do?" I said, well, "Nothing," because they don't exist. I can't. I always tell people, the best thing you can do with that is report them to the attorney general. And someone says, "Why?" I said, well, because you're preventing hopefully someone else from falling in the same scheme. Mm-hmm. And if you don't report them, then the attorney general is not going to know of your state, and then basically it's just going to go around and around, and someone's going to get screwed. So the more complaints you get, then a lot of times the attorney general will put up a little thing. I got something from someone years ago saying, "Oh, they wanted to pay me for something, and they're sending me money," and I'm like, "I can't believe you sent it to an attorney." So I reported him to the attorney general, and the attorney general sent me a thank you letter. But the whole thing was it was on record, and that's all you do, put on record. I mean, that's the best you can do with them.
I should say that. Go ahead, JP. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you make a good point, because I think automatically when people think about calling a lawyer, it automatically results as money spent to them, right? Like, hey, yeah, I'm not going to call this person because I don't have the extra money, or, it's probably too much. I can't afford it anyway. So I think your point of just pick up the phone and call and at least start the conversation is a great one. And then from there, I'm sure you can talk about, not in your case because you're paid by the collectors. You can find out about the cost and whatnot. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of money to get the help you need, right?
Listen, there's a lot of consumers that call, and I don't do the front end, but I've talked to my staff that does it. Like I said, God bless them. But I do the front end every once in a while, and I'll get in conversations with people, and someone's like, "Well, how much do I owe?" I go, "Nothing. I'm not charging you for anything. I try to help you." At the end of the day, if someone says, "Okay, you know what? I got the information I wanted," they know about us. So if they actually do get a legitimate debt collection company they'll know who to call next time. And I always tell them, listen, and they always say, "What can I do?" I'm like, just, if you want, give me a positive review. That's all I ask for on Google reviews or anything like that. And that's more than enough. Mm-hmm. One of my best reviews came from someone that I didn't even get paid for. I helped them out, but I didn't charge them because there was nothing I really could do. You know what I mean? But I gave them, I helped them out, just basically intervened and was an intermediary. And I said, I just asked for a positive review, and so those are the best things.
And I was going to mention your A+ rating, the Better Business Bureau.
Yeah, we all got all positive reviews, and I always tell people, if you're nervous about us, you don't believe that we're paying out of pocket, review my Better Business Bureau. I wouldn't get an A+. If I was scamming everyone, I wouldn't have an A+ rating. I'd have an F.
A-. Better call.
No, I wouldn't have A-. I'd be shut down.
No,
I'd lose my law license and I'd get shut down.
So make sure, go and visit the website. It's consumerlawfirmcenter.com.
Yep.
Is that correct? And then you can email help@consumerlawfirmcenter.com.
Yep, you can email that way. You can chat on our website. There's always someone available. I woke up this morning, someone was rambling on chat at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, just talking to themselves, and I said, "You're not going to find me there at 10." So
Derek, that was me trying to get a hold of you.
I felt bad. I'm like, yeah, there's not anyone available. I know it always pops up and says, "Hey, how can I help you?" But we weren't available at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. I was tucked away.
That's fair.
I'll have to try another route.
Yeah,
So,
I was tucked away.
Derek, I want to go back to having a little bit of fun. I mean, we so appreciate it, man. I learned a lot. I've known you forever. We don't talk too much about what we do professionally. I think because it's like when we're together, it's like we want to just enjoy our time together.
Yeah, we try. We ask how each other's doing, but
but it's interesting to learn because I did learn a lot. And I won't go into names, but I knew someone when I was in college that had to declare bankruptcy, and man, I'll never forget the calls that person used to get. Off the charts, and
bankruptcy is another thing. We get calls from people ahead of time, and that's usually what leads it up to it. And that's the other thing too. I always tell people not to go on this, but someone I say, listen, you're going to continue to get calls. If you ignore it, that's the one thing I will tell people: don't ignore it. You think it's going to go away a lot of times, and then someone gets a lawsuit afterwards. And I said, this is what happens when you ignore it. If there's a legitimate collection agency and they sue, if you ignore it, then I'll tell someone, don't ignore the lawsuit. Because once it gets to a lawsuit and you don't show up, you get a default judgment against you. Some people will call me after the fact and say, listen, I have a default judgment against me. And I'm like, yeah, there's nothing I can do at this point in time. The court ordered it. You're basically behind the eight ball. You should have tackled this beforehand. So don't ignore. If you ignore the call's not going to stop. One. And two, just get on the phone and explain your situation. And some of them will be more than happy to work with you, and other ones may not. But ignoring it doesn't help. And then once you get to court, if you skip the court hearing and you get a default judgment against you, that means liens and garnishments that can happen. There's nothing I can do. It's already past the fact. I can try to help negotiate a better settlement, but after that, it's about the extent of it.
So lesson is pay attention to what you
get. Yeah, I mean, just don't ignore it. I think we all do it. We all it'll go away. Procrastinate. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this.
Well, I'll tell you my quick story. I think I told JP this. I work for hotels in California, but I live in Massachusetts, so I pay Massachusetts taxes. There was an error on some tax information. So the state of California thought I was ignoring and not paying them taxes. So they sent me a letter. They sent me they've sent me multiple letters. Hey, where's our money? Where's our money? So finally, literally on the phone waiting for 6 hours twice. I was able to get all the proper paperwork and hired an accountant. Got an accountant. Point of the story was I paid attention because it did look kind of fishy. I'm like, why would I have to pay? But at the end of the day, I paid attention, picked up the phone, had to deal with the pain of a 4 or 6 hour wait twice, and it got addressed. So
my brother's dealing that right now with Connecticut and Mass.
Yeah,
Mass thinks he thinks he's paying Mass and he works in Connecticut. It's just but I said to him, like, we can't ignore it. Like, the longer you wait, I mean, especially the IRS, you want to ignore that.
Yeah.
They want their cash.
Yeah,
you
all of a sudden make you wait, but don't make them wait.
Yeah, if you ignore that, I'm gonna tell you right now, you have money in your account, that money will just disappear one day, and you'll be like, where did that go?
Yeah. So, all right, man. We're gonna switch gears and end with a little bit of fun here. JP, do you have anything you wanna start with?
Sure. I've got a couple fun things.
Go for it.
Describe yourself in 3 words. Go.
3 words?
Yeah.
Oh my God, jeez, JP, what the heck with that one?
Okay.
Good one.
Oh my God. I'd say friendly, patient, and outgoing, I guess.
Brian, agreed?
Yes, that was one of the best questions that we've had on all
yeah,
of our
it was.
podcasts.
That's a tough one.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Okay, I've got one more. Because this is on my list of questions to ask all of you guys sometime. If you could have dinner with 3 people, living or dead, knowing you're a history buff, who would you pick?
Well, definitely one would be Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
3. This is tough. So definitely Abraham Lincoln. That's the first one. The second one would be JFK. And the third, I know I'm going to miss some of these because, there's so many to choose from. I'm trying to think of a time that's like controversial or something that you would talk to someone. I would say,
it doesn't have to be history. It can be music. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. That's because you're like, it's like not only history, you're talking about like in general. This is like, my God, who else would I want to talk to that would be And more someone who's probably not around now. It's a tough one. I don't know the third one. I really don't know. I mean, there would be so many individuals I'd want to talk to, just because of the history we've lived in our lives, and not only that. I mean, musical. But you know what? I would say my third one, just because I want to know what was going on, was Robin Williams.
Oh, that's a good one.
Just because, you know what, someone who had what was going on, like, you know, what could have been done, just because
Right.
the guy, he just brought so much, you know, to the table. And he was so funny that I had to get to that next thing where
Yeah. Well,
he suffered.
those are good. That's all that I have.
That was awesome. You stumped him too, JP. That was the best.
No, it's tough. Well,
part.
three, because you know what,
Hard.
first of all, I don't know many people that can really describe themselves just like and be honest about it, because it's so. I don't like to talk about myself. That's one thing. So that's one. And then the three people. I mean, there would be a list of three people that I would. I mean, there'd be more than three if I was to sit back and take my time. And it's almost like saying who. You know, I always thought about this question before. Who I would think as a musician would be big in the time. And because I always watch the movies, it pops up as Selena. This woman she went off on the fact that she was doing English, Spanish, and then she went off to a clothing line. I would only imagine what she's doing now. I think she would have been one of those people that we compared to, you know, what Dre is doing now, where it's just branched off.
Yeah.
And it's someone obscure like that. Just because I see her and I'm like, my God, that's another waste that life ended way too early.
Way too early.
Awesome. All right, I have a couple here, and then we're gonna end. So, Derek, one thing that JP probably doesn't know, because we don't talk about it much. As you mentioned, we don't talk about ourselves too much. Is you're a huge music fan, and I'm not just talking about like hip hop and rap. You love music going back to the 50s.
Oh, I do, yeah.
So
I love 50s, yeah.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite decade of music? We'll say. Just give a decade. What's that one decade of music that you turn on the radio and you're going to keep it going?
80s by far. I have an 80s list. I just go through it. It's funny. I had my friend over here working. He was working in my house, and I put on the music, and we had the 80s on, and we were both just singing to the 80s songs. I think it's just the 80s. For me, the 80s. Yeah. I can't not miss the
nostalgia.
80s. Exactly. That's time of MTV when they actually did videos.
Yeah.
So the next one I'm bringing up because I saw Top Gun over the weekend. And I thought it was a great movie, and I forgot how good of an actor Tom Cruise is. He is as kooky as he might be. He's probably one of the best actors. So I was trying to frame this question so that I would leave it open, but I know there's just so many. I'm gonna try to ask it. And if it gets tricky, then I'll figure a different way to ask it. So, of all the Tom Cruise movies, what are your top 2 or 3 movies that you just, if it's on TV, you're going to stop doing everything and just watch it?
Well, first one is A Few Good Men. I love him in that one. He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
My second one, I mean, I loved him in Top Gun. I'm trying to remember all his movies he's been in recently. He was good in the Mission Impossibles. And he's been good in a lot of movies but I mean, A Few Good Men is my go-to. Every time he pops on that, I love that movie. I'm trying to think of a second one that most of the time, anything he's in after that pops up, I have no problem watching. I'm trying to think. Oh, you know what's a good one? You know what's a good one? He was in that was excellent. He did great acting. Was Vanilla Sky. It's a weird movie, but it was very good. I've
seen that one. I've seen that.
Yeah, I liked him in Vanilla Sky just because it was more of a serious movie than some of the other movies, but every time that comes on, I watch it. It took me like I think 6-7 times before I figured out what was going on, and then after that, it's just become like a cult classic for me. I like it on that.
Yeah, one of the ones that I obviously he wasn't the star in it, but he was really young was The Outsiders.
Yep.
You know, and again, he wasn't the star, but I thought that was an awesome movie.
Yeah,
but,
he was good in that. Yeah, he was. He was in the Drive-In movie too. He was also in Eyes Wide Shut, which I didn't really get into.
Yeah. Oh gosh, he was in The Firm, Jerry Maguire.
Firm.
There's been so many good movies.
Interview with a Vampire.
Interview with Vampire was excellent. Yep.
I thought that was a great.
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I was just trying to remember all the movies. Interview with Vampire was an excellent movie. The Firm was a good movie. Jerry Maguire was excellent.
Yeah, Jerry Maguire. It'll be funny. It'll be my one. I'll end with this thought here, because this movie did so well. I wonder if that's gonna. It's kind of already is a thing, but I wonder if it's gonna become more of a thing where these movies from the 80s and early 90s that were big then, they're gonna try to put together a plot to bring it back. Whether it's his stuff like Few Good Men, bring that character back because it's about the character, I guess, that people gravitate towards. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens. So, but Derek, thank you again, man. It was fun hearing what you got going on and hearing about what you do with your firm and the people that you represent. And hopefully people are able to take a few things away from this podcast. And if they need some help, reach out to you. We'll send out on our socials all your information so that people know how to contact.
I appreciate it.
So thank you again, everybody. As we record this, we're getting ready to kick some Golden State Warrior butt. Sorry, JP. So when this gets
you a Golden State fan?
No, I'm a Suns fan. And, we pooped the bed again this year. So.
Yeah, I didn't expect to get knocked out in the second round. I thought they would have gone further.
I don't want to talk about it.
That game 7 was a debacle.
All right, everyone.
I could have played better.
27 points at the half was terrible.
Oh my God. Worst game ever.
Thank you, everybody, for joining another episode of BNaz Business Chats. We appreciate all your support. Overall, well over 4,000 downloads. So please keep listening and connect with us socially on all of our platforms, wherever we may be. So we appreciate it, and we'll see you all very soon. Thank you.
This is Go. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.